So this is Steven St. Andre. When were you born?
Uh, 27 February 1965.
All right, and you served in multiple occasions, but the main of those was Persian Gulf War, Rwanda, Afghanistan, um, Farhad, Saudi Arabia, Rwanda, and many others. You were in the U.S. Air Force, and the highest rank you achieved was the
Senior Master Sergeant.
Senior Master Sergeant. Thank you. The date of this interview is December 12th, 2010, in Dixon, in California. I am unrelated to the veteran, and the interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. So, just starting out, I'm going to ask you a few questions just about where were you born, the town you grew up in, just stuff like that.
Okay.
So, you were born in...
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, and my parents got divorced when I was young and bounced around for a while, and I ended up settling in a small town in South Carolina, Lancaster, South Carolina, and graduated high school from Lancaster, South Carolina, and a year after I graduated high school, I joined the Air Force.
I see. And did you have any siblings, or?
Yes, I have two brothers, two sisters. One of my brothers is deceased. I have two half-brothers as well.
Did any of your siblings or relatives fight in the Army or Air Force?
I have a half-brother who is still in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in for close to 20 years.
Uh-huh. And what kind of things were you doing before you entered the service? What made you decide to join?
What made me decide to join was pretty simple. My older brother was kind of always my idol, and it's all he ever talked about growing up was joining the Air Force, and I kind of wanted to do anything that he ever wanted to do. He never joined. When I was 13 years old, I decided I wanted to join the Air Force, and that's what I did.
So what steps did you take before, when did you begin taking steps towards the Air Force?
My senior year of high school, I
Uh-huh.
talked to a recruiter and everything, and during high school I just worked at a pizza place and worked at a local cotton mill in town, and that's kind of where I'm from. Small town in South Carolina, you either go to college, join the military, or work at the cotton mill, and I'd already worked at the cotton mill, and actually I personally didn't have a desire to go to college. I couldn't stand school at that age, so it looked like the military was a good thing for me to do, and the Air Force was the branch I wanted to join.
Awesome. Did your parents, were they supportive of that?
Absolutely. I needed a little discipline, and they thought
Yeah.
the military would be perfect for that. Yeah, they were very, very supportive of it.
So, when did you depart for training camp?
May 23rd, 1984.
And how long did that go for?
Basic training back then was only 6 weeks long, and it's weird. They always get you there in the middle of the night for some kind of culture shock. And that first night, first 24 to 48 hours is kind of scary until you realize basic training is kind of a game to see if you can handle it. And so after that, basic training went pretty well.
And overall, it was a good experience.
Yeah, basic training was pretty easy. Air Force basic training back then wasn't very physical.
Yeah.
It was coming out of high school, I was in pretty good shape. I ran 5 to 8 miles a day, and in basic training we were running 2 miles a day. So for me it was pretty easy. There was individuals in basic training who had a rough time doing that, but at that age I was in real good shape, and it was a piece of cake.
Yeah. And how was the camaraderie there? Like your interaction with the other members? Was it?
It was kind of weird, to be honest with you. Everyone's thrown into this, U.S. is a melting pot, and basic training is the same thing. It's just a melting pot of people from everywhere that you've never met in your life, and you make some friends, and others you really don't want to talk to that much. You don't know if they're full of it or not. So, but overall, it was pretty good.
Yeah. And so then what happened after basic training?
After basic training, you end up going to your specialty school. My career field was called aerospace ground equipment. To try to simply explain that, it's all the support equipment for an aircraft when it's on the ground. If an aircraft's on the ground and they need to troubleshoot an electrical system, they don't want to run the jet engines to troubleshoot. It's not cost effective, burns too much fuel, so they have an external power cart that they hook up to it, or the hydraulics, or air compressor, or lots and lots of different components that you can hook up to the aircraft to work on the aircraft while it's on the ground. So it's called aerospace ground equipment. So I went straight from basic training in San Antonio to Chanute Air Force Base in Rantoul, Illinois. Really small town in Illinois, about 40 miles outside of Champaign, Illinois. And that school was 6 months long. And pretty academically demanding school. It was literally school from 6 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was straight up academic on all of that equipment. And prior to joining the Air Force, I was not a mechanic, didn't know a whole lot about mechanical stuff. I chose that career field because I thought it would broaden my experience in life in general. And so 6 months of that school, finished that school, when did we finish? In December of 1984. And then I had 2 weeks of leave, and then I was sent to Germany. It was my first assignment.
And at that school, did you stay there in Illinois?
Oh yeah, you live in the dorms.
The dorms, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very, very controlled. You get up in the morning, go run to the chow hall, which is in your building. You form up outside with, golly, 400 other people who just joined the Air Force, and you march about a mile to school.
Oh, wow.
Whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, you march to school in formation. It's very, very controlled because you're still brand new in the Air Force. They want to make sure that they have 100% control of you at that point, which they should. It's a lot of discipline involved at that point. So yeah, it's very controlled during that tech school time frame. You're not allowed to drink. And back then, the legal drinking age was 18 years old. You're not allowed to drink. You're not allowed to leave the base even. There's a lot of things you're not allowed to do.
I see. So Germany, what were you there for?
So I go to this school for 6 months to learn all these generators and aerospace ground equipment, and there was a special unit in Germany at the time, Air Support Operations Center, which they had generators also, but they weren't generators that supported aircraft on the ground. They were generators that supported satellite communication systems that would provide forward air control for the Army. Basically, our unit would go out and set up these huge satellite systems, and we'd be able to provide exact location of where the enemy was for the Army, and so then we'd call in the airstrikes. So basically, I go to this school for 6 months and end up in a unit where the generators I was working on I never saw before. But it was a great, great thing that happened to me. We were on a small Army base in Stuttgart, Germany. I come from a small town of 10,000 people. Stuttgart population was over 1 million, and at 19 years old in Stuttgart, Germany, that was an absolute blast. The job was awesome. The camaraderie was incredible. The weather was freezing cold. They said the one winter I was there was the worst winter in European history. I remember it was minus 83 wind chill one year, and that was cold. But we lived in the dorms there as well. Very small base that we were stationed at. It's no longer in existence. It was called Kelly Barracks. It was an Army base. Had about 500 people there. My unit, Air Force unit, had 85 people. It was called the Air Support Operations Center, 602nd ASOC. Did that for 2 years. That was probably the best thing that ever happened to me as far as getting out of my tech school and getting this special job in the Air Force that most aerospace ground equipment people didn't even know existed. So that was a really good thing that happened.
Yeah, That sounds really great. Was it a little more open? Like you were allowed to do more?
Oh yeah, at that point, once you get to your base, you're still in the dorms. To be out of the dorms, you have to be married. They're not gonna make married people live in the dorms. I was single, so you're still in the dorms. Yeah, you can get a car at that point, and you can go do whatever you want. You basically, you have a job. You need to do your job, and when you're off work, you're no different than a civilian, really. Well, to a point, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that point, I traveled all over Europe for 2 years on the weekends when we weren't working. Had a great time.
That sounds amazing. So what did you do after that training in Germany, or not the training, sorry.
The assignment in
The
Germany.
assignment in Germany.
After the assignment in Germany, I at that point, prior to going to Germany, when you're in your basic school, you fill out what's called a dream sheet. It's where you hope you get assigned, and everything I put was East Coast, near where I'm from, so I could be close to home. Well, after I went to Germany, I didn't want to be nowhere near home. I wanted to see another part of the world, so I put in for nothing but California and West Coast of the United States. Well, I got stationed in South Carolina, so it worked out. But it worked out good because I was close to the family, so I was far enough away from them to where they didn't bug me, close enough to where I could bug them. I got stationed in Charleston, South Carolina. I actually went to an aid shop on the flight line, and I was working a night shift. Absolutely hated it. I had about 6 months left to go in the Air Force, and I was going to get out. And one night I'm riding down the flight line while I'm working, taking a generator to an airplane, and I saw these special generators that I worked on in Germany parked over to the side of this one building, and these guys were pressure washing them, getting all the dirt and everything off of them because they'd been somewhere. So I pulled over and said, "Hey, what kind of unit are y'all? What do y'all do?" And they told me they were a airlift control element, which they were a mobile command post for Air Mobility Command at the time. Well, at the time it was called MAC, Mobile Airlift Command, which was later renamed to Air Mobility Command. And I said, "Well, are y'all looking for anybody?" And he said, "Yeah, we are. We'd like to have another guy on board." So the next day they set up an interview for me, and I was in that unit the day after that. And that was a specialized unit as well. There was only 40 people in the Air Force in my career field who did that job at different bases in the world. And that's a pretty small number of people in the Air Force doing something specialized. Like I said, I was 6 months away from getting out of the Air Force and got into that unit. I got into that unit in October of '87, and in November of '87 I went on my first deployment with that unit to Cairo, Egypt. Got to see the pyramids, lived in a 5-star hotel next to the pyramids, and we worked at a place about 40 miles outside of Cairo, Egypt. It was for an operation, regular routine training exercise, and we were there for about 45 days. That mobile command post, we would deploy this communications shelter that was 20 feet long, 16 feet wide. Folded up, it was 20 feet long, 8 feet wide, so that it would fit on an airplane. We'd get to where we were going, set up all the communications equipment. We were the first plane to land, so we could get an operational command post for that airfield so that everybody else could come in and land. The Army would come in, and whoever else was coming to that exercise, we'd get them airlifted in, download their airplanes. Then when the operation's over, get them all loaded up and send them all home, and we'd be on the last airplane out as well.